What is a man? How do we define ourselves between being a boy and being a man? Is it simply because of our age? When is it that we make the jump from being a child to a boy to a man? How do we define this? This is something that has always intrigued me. Growing up as a martial artist, when I first started at age 16, I met my professor, my martial arts professor, Professor Don Jacob. And he's a wise man, very, very streetwise. I'll put up a bit of information on him here.
You know, Martin Luther King had a dream too, eh? When I was having a dream, the dream came about because of poverty. Now, when I say poverty, I don't mean it in a negative way. Poverty of education, poverty of food, poverty of, it wasn't poverty of love, because we always had love in spite of being poor. But I used to be beaten by bigger guys, and I keep saying Trinidad and Tobago was so small, I had to either learn to run or I had to learn to protect myself. So I met a gentleman by the name of Mr. Clyde Thomas, who is deceased now, a prison officer. Long ago we used to call them turnkey. The young people wouldn't know that, but now is prison officers or correctional officers. And he started to teach me judo, and the dream grew from there, from 9 years old, into what it is today. So he was a father figure, and he taught me how to say good morning in a certain way, how to say thank you, how to say please, excuse me. He taught me how to, to be a man. The first time I went into a prison, I went with him because he was working there. And he used to teach the prison officers there, and I used to be his assistant. So he took me into the cell and said to me, there's a lot of crime happening and a lot of things. Don't ever give me or put me through the embarrassment to have to lock you down behind this thing here. And he gave me a tour of the prisons and stuff like that. And it motivated me even more to do the best that I can and be the best that I can, And I started to train from there and started to get really, really good at the martial arts. And I started to cross-train it with karate and then jiu-jitsu, and get opportunity to travel and experience a different method of globalization of the mind. And that was it. Was no turning back from then. Going to the United States, to Canada, to Japan, to the UK, to different parts of the Caribbean. And, every time I go, it's like coming back with a new book in my mind as to cultural experiences, different foods, different languages, different type of respect, value systems, and so on. So that in itself was a very, very good thing for me in the beginning. Then I learned how to use my skill to be able to put food on the table. And not only that, help other people to put food on their table. I never knew that for sure Purple Dragon would have been a brand name like it is right now. In several countries, in more than 13 countries, are people practicing this. Over 10,000 are people practicing it right now. Over 40,000 people have studied it, passing through the system, and so on. So it is a really gratifying experience. It's a positive experience. It's a life-changing and enhancing experience for me. And if I had to live my life all over again, I would do the same exact thing, maybe one or two little differences.
And he had this theory. Most modern men had no way of knowing when they became men. Now, women have a very clear indication of when they have made the transition from girl to woman. And that was usually when she had her period. But men in today's modern environment had no idea when that transition was made and who determined when they became men versus boys. And so, my friends, that's what we're going to be discussing today. What is a man? Who are we collectively? And how do we know when we become men? Because men are having a hard time in today's modern environment. Okay, let's talk about it. My friends, please subscribe. I want to get my numbers up to 250,000. We just hit over 240,000. I've been on air for 2.5 years. I would love to be able to hit the 250 in the next 2 to 3 months. And I need you guys to help me get there. A lot of you are watching me and you're not subscribed. Come on. It takes nothing from you. And it means everything to me for you to hit that like button and to hit that subscribe button. Okay? Book a session if you need any help, of course. Pick up one of my digital products, either the Content Creators Toolkit or the Digital Vault if you want to create content and make some residual income. So I don't want to waste too much time. I want to get straight into this segment. And we're going to take a segment from Diary of a CEO. They have literally become one of my favorite channels because he brings on some of the most incredible innovators and thought leaders and builders of society. This particular video is entitled, The Real Reason Life is Brutally Unfair for Men. But I want you to question whether it is unfair to men. I mean, I have my opinion, but I want us to really clue into this particular gentleman talking because it's a powerful session. And the gentleman he has on the show is Dr. K. He's a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, and he has a very interesting perspective on why men are having it much harder in today's environment. And I have my opinion as well. Listen, I'm not trained, but I'm a keen observer of life. But I've been around enough to understand that there may be deeper issues.
More confusion than ever over what it is to be a man and the role of a man in a, and then we look at the stats around suicidality. And I think in Europe, the biggest killer of men under the age of 45 is themselves currently. Mm-hmm. Is the shifting idea of what it is to be a man having an impact on people's sense of self and their purpose?
100%. So there's a crisis that's going on in men, and people think that this is new, but I don't think it's new. It's always been there. So if you look at even 50, 60 years ago, 80% of suicides are still going to be men. So historically, men have been killing themselves for 100 years, and no one's been paying attention. We're just noticing now because the problem seems to be getting worse. So there's a couple of things that are really interesting to understand. So one is that if we look at what technology is doing to our brains, the first thing that it's doing is it is externalizing our attention. So if you look back, let's say 1,000 years ago, as human beings, we spent a lot more time with ourselves. So let's say that you and I go out hunting. And then let's say you shoot an arrow at a deer and you miss. And then I shoot an arrow at a deer and I hit. So in this moment, I'm superior to you. And then we pick up the deer and we're carrying it back. And then we have about 2 or 3 hours to take that emotional insult and we kind of process it. We just give our mind space to process it, which it does automatically. Now, if you look at what happens in people's days, they don't actually have any time to process what happens to them because we are so constantly distracted by external things. So I don't know if you're like this, but I was in this point where I was idiotically efficient. So I would wake up in the morning and I would listen to a podcast while I'm doing my exercise or whatever. And then even when I'm cooking, I'm listening to a lecture. And then when I'm walking to the train, I have earbuds in and I'm listening to a lecture there. On the train, I'm reading. I wanted my life to be completely efficient. I didn't want to waste a single moment.
I literally listen to the news in the shower. It's
right. So we don't want to waste time. And so if you really think about it, where's the attention of your mind? Your mind is pointed outside of you. And so then what happens is once we do not pay attention to ourselves, we lose sight of our internal signals. Literally in the same way that if you raise a child in a dark cave, the photoreceptors in their eyes won't develop. They will atrophy. So anything that the mind does not get access to will start to atrophy. If I don't practice Spanish, I'm going to forget Spanish. The brain is a very efficient organ. So as we externalize our attention, we lose sight of our internal signals. We don't know who we are anymore. And now if I don't know who I am, how do I figure out who I'm supposed to be? I pay attention to the outside. Where are the answers? They're on the outside. So this person is talking about masculinity. This person is talking about what it means to be a man. This person is talking about what it means to be a man. And now since I don't have any internal source of information, I'm trying to figure out what it means to be a man from the outside world. And this is when men get truly fucked. Because what it means to be a man, we are getting all kinds of mixed signals. So on the one hand, it means being physically fit. On the other hand, it means being a provider. On one hand, it means having sex with as many women as you can find. On the other hand, it means having sex with just one woman and being a really solid man and being a good father. And then there's also people telling us that being a man means that you're shit, right? That you're toxic, that your testosterone level makes you violent, that you're evil, that you're privileged, that there's a patriarchy, all this kind of stuff. So we're getting all this information from the outside about what it means to be a man.
I think he's approaching this from a mental health perspective, which is fine. I mean, give a guy a hammer, he's going to build a house. He's a psychiatrist, so he's going to move. He's going to only think about it from, okay, there's the problem, there's the person, this is how they're acting, I'm going to check his mental health. But I think we have to go back a little further, because we have to ask ourselves, what is a man? How does a boy define and know when he becomes a man? Back in the day, when we were living in caves and in villages, in order for the boy to become a man, and society then considers him a man, therefore, in turn, him feeling now, I am a man, that occurred when he had to go and endure a task. He had to go up to the mountain, he had to kill a bear, he had to kill a lion, he had to do something hard. And a lot of the time, he never survived. He never had the chance to become a man. But if he survived, even with scars, he was admired and astonished. And he then had the ability to choose a mate and a wife. Because women would then say, he is a man that can protect me. Look at what he did. He killed the lion. He killed the bear. He usually had to go and do and endure a journey that was incredibly difficult. It was then that he became a man. As we progressed through history, a man was considered a boy who went to war, survived, and came back home. Father used to congratulate him. Now you're a man. You know, you've been to war. Sometimes he would come back scarred, mentally and physically. But he was considered a man, and society respected him for it. Nowadays, there is no transition. There is no hard task for men to accomplish. It is Wall Street. It's men going up on Wall Street or driving cars really fast or doing something incredibly stupid. It's now trying to get recognition to show that you are incredible, you are outstanding. Because in today's modern society, there's no difficult task for the man to accomplish. Men don't have to go to war. There's no bears to kill. There's nothing difficult to do. The metrics that society now has put in place for men to show that he's a man are not based on physical effort. It's now based on mental effort. You got to create a great app. You got to create a face. You got to create some big company. You got to do something that makes a shitload of money. So the most nerdy of the nerdy guys now, they have become the most desirable of the species. Not for mating, but for provision. So now we have a society that's all screwed up because the betas of the beta are running the world, and the men who have massive amounts of testosterone and those who were warriors are only doing it through sports. And that is the battlefield. Sports have become the battlefield. So when you go out in the court and you hit those hoops and you dunking those balls, they pay you well. Now you are a man. Now you get rewarded for that. But in essence, the trials are the same. Men have to do something hard in order to prove that he's a man. Back when women had to be protected from the wild, the man who could go on his own and kill a bear and kill a lion or kill some wild animal, he was highly appreciated by women. She would gladly be his mate. In today's environment, the man who goes out there and make a couple million or even $1 billion these days, he's the one that's highly desirable. So what happens to the man that does not accomplish any of those things? Men who go to war these days, they're not highly appreciated. They're not even respected. Yeah, they will say, oh, thank you for your service. But it's almost like, okay, I got to say it because, I got to say it. But most men don't even go to war. They join the army, they join the navy, they join these services, but most of them never even see battle. So people will say, oh, thank you for your service, but it's not felt with that deep appreciation anymore. It doesn't have that degree of gratitude behind it anymore. So that is not even appreciated. We see a lot of veterans who are homeless, who go through serious mental issues. They're not treated with much respect once they get back home. So the soldiering don't even get as much respect anymore. So when is it does a man become a man in today's environment? That's the problem. Men are lost. They don't even know that they're men. That's why you have a massive uptick in video games. This is why men play so much video games, because there is a certain part of it that is primal, that's hitting their primal mode in their heads. They get to kill, they get to accomplish a task. But the problem is it never ends. That's why so many boys get hooked on video games right through until they're grown-ass men still sitting in their mother's basement trying to become a man. They never get to that point because video games are designed to keep you hooked, one mission after the next. Tell me I'm wrong. Let's go back to the doctor.
And so there are all kinds of interesting ramifications of this. So men in today's society are not allowed to complain. So if you complain and you're a successful person or a privileged person, everyone is going to think you're arrogant. Everyone is going to think, oh my God, who's this fucking guy? This guy doesn't know what my life is like. How does he have any right to complain? And even your mind will tell you this. You'll look at these people and you'll be like, yeah, I don't have a right to complain. But now we need to stop for a second and think about what it does to your psychology when you as a human being are not allowed to articulate your suffering. I've worked with people who've grown up in abusive households where children will say to their parents, Mommy, Daddy, I'm hurting. And the parent smacks them across the face. How dare you? You're so lucky. You don't realize the sacrifices I make for you. It's traumatizing to the child when they say, I am suffering and no one listens. This is what we're doing to the generation of men. People are saying, I am suffering. For 100 years, men have been killing themselves. 80% of suicides are men. The most dangerous thing for a man under 45 is themselves. And these people have been literally killing themselves because no one has been listening to them. So in the same way that you grow up with as a child in a household that's abusive, where no one takes you seriously, no one listens to your suffering, and now we even have successful men who are not allowed to complain. So the psychological impact is the same. Anytime you have a human being who is suffering in some way and they cannot find connection with another human being, they cannot find compassion with another human being, that person is going to feel isolated.
And there lies the problem, because we've created a society of women who don't see average men as viable partners. Those viable partners have not reached the elite status that most women see as proper mates in order for them to procreate with. They'll have fun with them, but they won't procreate with them. Average men just don't have any opportunities anymore. So if you're not desirable, you haven't got to a point where you know that you're a man, because another part of being a man is actually losing your virginity. Now, losing your virginity wasn't just having sex. It was also a sign that you had the ability to find a mate who found you viable for you to have intercourse with her. In other words, chances of impregnating her. So a lot of men conceive this as, I have hit manhood. That's why back in the day, most men say you're not a man until you've lost your virginity. You're not a man yet, boy. You're 30 and you haven't lost your virginity. You're not a man. That's where all of these terms come from, because it means that you don't have the ability to attract a woman. You're a boy. Boys don't attract women. Men do. So a lot of men have been cut down by so many women they've given up. They've become incels, involuntary celibates, who basically just feel that they have no chance at women because they found the journey into manhood too difficult. Meaning, they don't want to put in the hard work to stop eating the Cheetos, stop eating the freaking ice cream and the sodas, sitting in their mama's basement, freaking munching away, playing video games, trying to get to that next level so that they could feel like a man, hiding behind a computer screen, typing away and being boisterous and asserting their dominance on Reddit. But ask them to go out on the street to talk to someone in the same fashion, they can't do it. Because the virtual world is much kinder to them. They don't have to face embarrassment, humiliation, or the real backlash of saying something nasty to someone. Because more than likely they would have to defend themselves physically, and physically they don't have the ability. Not with eating Cheetos and sucking down fizzy drinks all day and not taking care of their body. That's why, gentlemen, it's important for you to tear your ass off of that freaking couch or seat, get to a bloody gym, start running, start freaking doing something physical to change your mindset so that you can actually become a man. Physical exertion is what makes men. This is what we have to understand. Physical exertion. You have to do something physical. That's why the school system is not conducive to men, because men are not designed to sit on their asses in a freaking row like a bloody assembly line taking in information. That's not how men were designed. And that's why women strive in these environments, because women are better at that shit.
And if you look at the statistics on suicide, it's very interesting. So the number one thing that correlates with male suicide is not depression. And this is super scary. There's one study I saw recently that suggests that 50% of men who kill themselves have no history or evidence of mental illness. And this, I believe the statistic in my clinical practice because I know what depression looks like. I know what bipolar disorder looks like. And half the men that I've worked with, at least, are not actually mentally ill. See, mental illness means a pathology of the mind, which means that the mind is malfunctioning. Most of the suicidal men that I work with, their mind isn't malfunctioning. They genuinely have a life that is no longer worth living. They're looking at things and objectively realizing that there's no way out of this situation. So they turn to suicide. So I know it's kind of like a very controversial statement, but I think that's what my clinical practice has shown, and there's some research to even back that up. So if we sort of look at what's going on with men, we're sort of, they have nowhere to turn to. And the number one thing that correlates with it is not mental illness, but is a sense of thwarted belongingness. So this is kind of like multivariate regression analysis. But basically what happens is what causes people to kill themselves is they try to connect with others and they get rejected. So it's specifically a very specific research term called thwarted belongingness. So I try to belong to a group, and that group, or multiple groups usually, will thwart my attempts to join the tribe, to join the community. And this is what actually correlates a lot with suicidality.
And this, my friend, is where the major problem perpetuates itself. Women have entered the workplace. A lot more women have gone to college, and a lot more women are making more money, even more money than men. Of course, because of hypergamy, she do not want a man who's below her. So 80% of the men who exist in this world are not even being looked at by most women. Women are only looking at the top 20% of men. So if a man don't have the ability to procreate, number one, he's not having sex. He don't have any kids. He can't even afford to buy a house on his own because he's not making enough money in an economy that requires two people to be working, pooling their funds together in order to buy a home. So he has no roof over his head. So if there's no roof over his head, there is no legion or loyalty to anyone. There's even no legion to his country because he owns nothing in that country that he can call his that he has to protect. Do you understand what this does to someone? So if I have no connection to anything, what is my purpose as a man? I have none. There's no purpose. I got my video game. That's it. So the days that he wakes up and there's no purpose and nothing to protect and nothing to bond to, he has no friends, nothing. Why am I here? Some days it's good, but most days it's not. And he will more than likely just say, well, let me permanently go to sleep. That's what we're dealing with in today's environment. I'm going to fast forward this. There's another piece that I thought was really good.
What do you think of Andrew Tateism then?
So as a general rule, I don't comment on people that I don't speak to. Mm-hmm. So tell me the features of what you're talking about.
Okay, so the recent wave of internet masculine influencers who have like Bugattis and lots of women and sports cars, and there's many of them. And they seem to be resonant for some kind of reason, that are kind of saying that the way to be a man is to have loads of money, lots of women, these kind of cars, physical strength. And there's just this huge sort of generation of young, typically men, that are now disciples of that religion.
Yeah. So I think if you dislike that toxic masculinity, what we need to understand is it's the people who hate that toxic masculinity that are driving these people towards it. So I know this is kind of crazy.
Why did he define all of these things as toxic masculinity when in essence, that's what women want? Women want the cars, women want the man that has the body, and women want the man with the money. Why is that defined as toxic masculinity? I don't get it. I'm waiting for any one of you men to tell me why is that toxic masculinity when in essence that is what the opposite gender wants in order for them to find you attractive, in order for you to procreate, in order for you to be taken in as a mate. Every other species have to demonstrate that they're worthy in order to attract a mate. But when a man does what the woman wants, it's toxic. Only beta males can say this shit. Only the men who don't have the physical prowess, but he has the mental capability, like this doctor, because that's what he's going on. He's not built to attract women. He'll make money. He got the beta bucks. Listen, he might have the money because he's a doctor. He's achieved academic excellence. So he has one of the primary stimulants that will make women attracted to him. But in essence, he's a small guy. He don't have the body. But unfortunately, this is the direction society have moved men's brains in. But in reality, women are still women and still adhere to her biological needs. She's also looking for a strong man. So she will pick him as the protector, but she will probably want another seed from a stronger, bigger, more powerful man.
So what's happened is this has grown, right? And as it's grown, what have we done? We've demonized these people. We've said these people are bad. And as we demonize them, what's happened? They've grown stronger. So this is something that's very important to understand. If you are a man and you say, I am suffering today, what is the response that you're going to get?
Shut up.
Absolutely.
Not in those exact words, but that's whatever the words are, that's what they mean.
Now, I want us to be very, very careful, right? So if you are listening to Stephen say people tell you to shut up, and your first thought as a listener is, no, that's not true, that's the problem. So if people agree with you, they understand what you're saying. But if they disagree with you, that's the problem. We literally have a man who is telling us right now that your experience is when I say I'm suffering, people tell you to shut up. And then people are going to be judging you for saying that. And they're going to be saying, no, that's not true.
They're going to be saying, shut up.
Absolutely. Right? So this is exactly the problem. So men are struggling right now, and the rest of the world says, no, you're not. You're privileged. You're a man. There's a patriarchy. And I'm not commenting on the sociology of it. There is a patriarchy, whatever. Men have many advantages in life. I've experienced many advantages of being a man. It's absolutely true. Let's not go there. I'm talking about the individual experience of men. Absolutely true.
What is he talking about? There's no many advantages that men have. Men have to compete with other men. There is no freaking advantages for men. Men is the most disadvantaged of the two sexes in today's environment. The only thing men have is strength, but he has to compete with men who are much more powerful, much stronger than him. If he has a little bit of money, he wants to start something big. There is somebody more powerful and richer than him. So what the hell are you talking about the advantages of men? I don't get it. You lost me here, brother. The reason why Andrew Tate and these men have become so freaking powerful and their voices are resonating around the world is because he is teaching men what women respond to. And we watch and see what women respond to. Women will freaking demonize Andrew Tate. But you put those same women in a room and Andrew Tate comes out and stands next to an average guy. I can almost guarantee you 100% if she had to choose one of those two men, it would be Andrew Tate. Because she would look at the Bugattis, she would look at the freaking mansions, she would look at his height, and she would say, yeah, I want the 6'4" guy with the mansion, fast cars. I'll take that over that average good-looking guy over there. Thank you. He might have a PhD or he might, I don't care what he has. This man over here, Mr. Tate, has made it. I'm waiting at the finish line. I'll take Mr. Tate. Thank you. Tell me I'm wrong. Women love to lie about their morality, but their biology never freaking lies. Never freaking lies.
So there is one group of people on the planet who says, yes, your life does suck. And that's these toxic masculine people. They're the only people that truly validate men's experiences. Because everyone else says, why are you complaining? And these guys say, yeah, you're a fucking loser. What are you going to do about it? They at least meet you where you're at. And they say, yes, your life is hard, and I will show you a way to make it better. Whereas the rest of the world says, no, your life isn't hard. What are you complaining about? And I've seen this as a doctor. I've seen patients who are complaining about pain.
And so which one is toxic? Which one is toxic? The guy who's saying, suck it up, here's a solution, or the other one is saying, there's nothing wrong with you. Life is great. Just suck it up and get on with it. The influencers on one side is telling you what you need to do to change your life. The other side is telling you your life is great. Deal with it. You shouldn't feel like that. You're privileged. Bullshit. If he was privileged, he wouldn't be in the situation that he's in. This is the problem. A woman can go on OnlyFans and freaking make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Man can't do that. A woman can go on Instagram and beg for money. She'll get thousands of dollars. Men can't do that. A woman can divorce her husband that she's been married to for 3 months and make money. A woman can rack up a shitload of student loan debt, live in friggin' debt, and then marry a man who takes care of that debt. Men cannot do that. So please don't tell me that men are privileged.
Women who are complaining about pain because they have an internal bleed within the wall of their uterus that cannot get detected. And they're saying, I'm hurting, and we ignore this person's pain. And that's when things go bad. So for years and years and years, we have ignored the struggles of men. And there's one group on the planet who accepts them with open arms. And the more that we demonize them, so when someone starts believing in this toxic masculinity, what is the response? Do people ever ask, like, help me understand what your life is like? Like, what do you like about this person? Because everyone's going to them for a reason, but we never bother to ask. Why are you listening to this person? What does this mean to you? We see these posts all the time in our community. My boyfriend is getting into this stuff. My son is getting this stuff. How do I stop it? Hold on a second. Don't try to stop it. Understand it first. Because everyone's trying to stop it and no one is bothering to listen to what the experience of these men are. And that's why it's getting worse and worse and worse as we try to stop it.
So if I'm the mother of a son who is watching a lot of these sort of toxic male influences online, what would be a better approach versus just banning the computer and telling them that that's toxic and not to look at it?
Help me understand what you like about this. What is it like to be a man in today's day and age? How do you feel about yourself?
That's the best information this man has given so far. That's it. That's all people have to do. Why is it that you feel that you need to listen to an Andrew Tate or to a Fresh and Fit or these so-called men, these so-called toxic influencers? Apparently we're now called manfluencers. The bottom line is men have very little guidance online. Women have tons and tons, millions and millions of influencers. Remember, the so-called influencer market was started by women. And before that, it started on mainstream TV. It started with sitcoms way back in the day. They just progressively became influencers. They were always the influence for most of women's understanding of life. Train their husband, how men should be taught, how this, blah, blah, blah. It was all for women. It was never for men. So now we've reached this point where the manfluencers have risen up and said, you know what, enough of this shit, man. Men are hurting. But now they get deemed toxic masculinity.
How does it feel knowing that 70 to 80% of women want you to make more money than them, and yet 60% of people who graduate from college are women? So men are living in a world today where there are impossible expectations to meet. And so, like, what is it like to be someone who fundamentally has no chance at success?
So how can you really look at men and say, oh, we have advantages? How can you honestly look at that and say we have advantages? And what is an advantage? Because you might have to now define what an advantage is, because I don't see that being an advantage if you don't have the ability to make money and procreate and carry on your own genetic line. What else is there to deal with in life? You can't even prove to people that you're a man. What else is there? Tell me, because I'm scratching my head trying to think of something else, man.
Right? These are the kinds of things that you need to say to these people. You need to give them an alternate place to go where they can be heard and helped, supported, and understood. See, anytime we make a judgment, our mind already has a conclusion. There's nothing left to learn anytime we're judgmental. So what do we do to all these people who are toxic men? We even create the word toxic. We literally label them as bad in some way. And I'm not saying that the behavior isn't toxic. But what I'm trying to point out is that even in our language, there is so much harsh judgment. So I once had a patient.
We both just did it, didn't we?
Absolutely. So I once had a patient who was smearing feces all over the school. So adolescent kid, right? And when you have a kid who's literally taking a shit and wiping it on the walls and stuff, what happens? The kid gets punished. Kid gets punished again and again and again. The one really sad thing is no one ever asks, why are you doing this? What's going on inside you? Because healthy kids don't do this. It's only kids who've been traumatized in some way. And as I've worked with incels, as I've worked with people who are toxically masculine, it always starts with trauma. And when I say always, this is a clinical experience, but I'm talking about 100%. So 100% of people start on this path by getting hurt in some way, by getting taken advantage of in some way, by sacrificing something and not getting something in return. And they have their share of responsibility too. I'm not saying that they're hapless victims, but I think that people who are raised with love and compassion and do have connections don't go down this road.
I'm glad he finally acknowledged that he was wrong for even using the term toxic masculinity and have picked up on the same rhetoric that mainstream media have labeled men who are trying to help other men. Men who've identified the problems outside mainstream media's rhetoric. I'm finally glad that both of them freaking admitted that they should not even have used that term because it is a solution. Andrew Tate and all of us men out here who are trying to help other men, we are solutions. We're trying to give men their power back. I am trying to show you, gentlemen, how to move from being boys to men. You got to do the hard work. You got to do something hard. You got to have a purpose. Only when you're in your purpose that's the only time when other women will see you. If you're just aimlessly going through life, if you're that guy that just goes to the office, comes home, go to your video games, don't take care of your body, just you look like crap. You're balding. You got a pot belly. Your shoulders are freaking smaller than your waistline. You have no ability to communicate or talk to people. You're not going to win, my friends. You got to get to the gym, lift some weights, get your testosterone levels up, get your energy up. Your shoulders have to be wider than your waistline. You have to get out there and have a purpose. Even if your first purpose is to lose freaking 50 pounds, that is still a purpose. You got to drive yourself towards something. Just waking up and aimlessly going through life isn't the way to do it. Because one day you're going to wake up and realize, what am I doing? Why am I here? I don't have to be here. I have nothing. I spent all my money on freaking OnlyFans, whacking away all of my money on some digital products and some freaking video games. I'm still in my mother's basement. I'm 35 years old. I have nothing, no purpose whatsoever. Can't cook, can't do shit for myself because mom have done everything for me. That is the man that needs freaking help. All right, guys, I'm always here for you, my friends. Let me know if you need any help. Book a session. You know, I sound like a freaking hypocrite just telling you that, but my time is also valuable. I have to be compensated in some way. But my fees are still below $100 an hour. And I'm trying to reach each and every single one of you so that I can help you. Book a session if you need help, gentlemen. Okay? Life does have purpose. It's just that you haven't found it yet. So, my friends, that's it for today. Listen, I will be back tomorrow with another segment, another lesson. And always remember, whenever in doubt, always ask an older man. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.